1. Last night, a friend and I were discussing every weird, unexplained event that ever happened to us. They were shocked I had experienced so many. It made me realize I'd seen a lot of weird stuff in my 34 years. My younger sis and I often talk about the running. If we sat on our bedroom floors, we'd hear what sounded like an adult hauling ass down our hallway that dead-ended abruptly past our doorways. But we never heard anyone putting on the brakes. The sounds just stopped mid-stride. I vaguely remember occasionally seeing sandaled feet sprinting by. It was a good playful energy, never scared us, just intrigued. I was about 10 years old. Went to my younger sister's room to look for her. When I turned the corner, my 6 years deceased grandfather was standing there, wearing a white suit and dress pants, smiling down at me and glowing. I blinked, and he was gone. I barely knew the man and have all but 3 brief memories of him. Very strange, but again, good vibes. The night my grandma died. We were all gathered on the first floor of her house. We all heard a loud thud and then sounds of a basket in the basement fall. No one was down there. An aunt and I went to check it out. It didn't just fall. It was about 12 feet from the shelf it was sitting on. It was tossed across the basement. Again, though, it didn't feel dark. In high school, my stereo would sometimes come on by itself at night. Maybe a glitch, but it never happened while I was awake. That did feel dark. Babysitting my 2 younger cousins at their place. They were taking a nap, then a kid from inside the house yelled, "Mom!" like they were trying to find her. That voice belonged to neither of my sleeping cousins. This is the most prolonged paranormal experience. First time back home after moving out, was chatting on AOL Instant Messenger with friends. Old? Since MP3 players were just shy of becoming ubiquitous. I went out at night to grab the CDs from my car, something I'd done a million times. When I grabbed my case and turned around, there was a woman in her early 30s standing a few feet away at the corner of my house, wearing a pink peach 80s nightgown in 2005, watching my every move, playing with her cross necklace, and had a slight glow to her. I thought, okay. I'm either imagining this or it's a ghost. If I blink, she'll just go away. I blinked. She stayed. So I skirted about 10 feet around her to go back inside. All the while she craned her neck and watched me as I walked away, playing with her necklace all the while. Locked the door, got back on AIM, and immediately told my friends what I just told you. Joined the military, and was on CQ duty, where you pull a 24-hour shift at your barracks front desk, in case you need to call in or document an issue. Well, the sergeant in charge was asleep on a couch. I went downstairs at 3 a.m. on a weeknight, in this 19th century sandstone building, to use the commons bathroom. Wasn't the least bit spooked, though. As I was washing my hands, there was a knock at the door. "Just 10 more seconds, please," I responded. I dried my hands, opened the door, and nobody was there. Went back upstairs thinking the sergeant was messing with me. Nope, he was still asleep, drooling heavily. It's possible someone pranked me, but it's unlikely they could have run off without making a sound on that floor, or that anyone else was still awake. Come to find out later, a lot of people had the same experience. In another old sandstone building, my unit was doing PT in a basement office. It was another 90 minutes before any of the civilian contractors would be arriving to work there. Yet we heard someone in a seldom-used side entrance, and the distinct sound of someone walking down the hallway's linoleum floor. My sergeant asked me to check out who was there, so I looked through the office door's window. The footsteps got closer and closer, then started walking up the stairs right in front of the door. The light from our office flooded through that window and lit the stairs. There was no one walking up the stairs, but the footsteps continued all the way up. Told my team no one was there. So a crew of about 12 of us searched the building. Absolutely nobody to be found. That one sticks with me because a dozen people essentially experienced something that makes 0 sense. Others had really aggressive experiences in there. Always was a dark tinge to that place. At age 23, I get out of the service and move into my own townhouse. A few months in and having a good sense of the usual noises of the house by then. my dog and I heard distinct footsteps coming from the kitchen. He went ballistic. I thought someone broke in. I ran upstairs, grabbed my gun, searched the house up and down. Again, nothing. Every door and window was locked up tight. We never experienced or had a reaction to anything like that again. A few months later, my sis, who has had some even more bunker stuff happen to her than me, crashed on my couch. I was falling asleep in my bed when a huge burst of energy shot through the house. Then I hear the laptop we were using to watch Hulu start blaring on max volume, though we hadn't been watching anywhere near that volume. I go downstairs to see if my sis was just as confused as I was, especially since she fell asleep with the PC right in front of her face. Nope, sound asleep. Even though Wipeout is just blasting right in her ears. It took a solid minute to wake her up. It was like she was a drugged-up patient in a hospital. When she finally came to, she was super confused and emotional. Very bizarre. Sometimes I drive through a nearby cemetery to break up the monotony of my commute. Done it hundreds of times. About 7 years ago, after working a rare second shift, I was driving through when I saw an old man walking up ahead. I worried it was someone with dementia from one of the nearby nursing homes. He saw my headlights, turned around, then dipped behind an oak tree. I stopped, pointed my headlights toward the tree, got out of the car, walked toward the tree saying, "Sir, it's okay, you're safe. You're not in trouble. I'm just checking to make sure you're..." Checked behind the tree. Nothing. Then I basically ran a tiny circle around the tree like a maniac, thinking this old guy was spry or something. Nope, nothing, just disappeared. I'm a night owl by nature. I wasn't tired or out of it. I know what I saw. No way an old man could have run away without me seeing or hearing him. Several years ago, I was moonlighting as a security guard. While doing rounds with another guard dozens of floors below me, I saw him walk past an entryway into a break room. Dude was the jolliest cat you ever met, but my buddy then looked furious. Confused as to why he was in my area of responsibility and looking pissed off, I went to ask him what was up. Yep, no one in the break room. Literally impossible to hide or get past me. A few seconds later, my actual buddy calls in his next area's tour. Still dozens of floors away from me. That's the last weird event I had. I'm not spiritual, religious, superstitious, or prone to being scared easily. But those are all the events that transpired that I can't explain away. 2. So a few years ago, around 2013, my aunt's ex-husband passed away by being brutally murdered. This ex-husband was also the father to her children. So it was a very difficult time for the whole family. The night he passed, my cousin, his daughter, was staying over my house for a sleepover. The next morning, when we got the news, it was very heartbreaking and left us feeling like we were in a dream. A few months had passed, and my aunt started noticing weird things happening in her house. First, all the TVs in her house would turn on by themselves in the middle of the night, and while she was home alone during the day. Things would move on their own, and she would misplace items throughout her home. She started to feel a paranormal presence in the house, and decided to call a medium, or a psychic, to come and see what was going on. This is where things get even weirder. The day my aunt brought the medium to our house, my mom and I were parked in my aunt's driveway, waiting for the medium's session to end. When it ended, we went inside, and my aunt said that the medium knew things that nobody else could possibly know. The medium knew specifics such as where my aunt had sold her wedding ring, pet names she had with her ex-husband, and details of their marriage. The medium also spoke to my aunt's ex-husband and claimed that he had been the one messing with the TVs at night and moving things out of place around her home. The medium also said that her ex-husband knew how he was murdered and who murdered him. At this time, his death was still being investigated and no one knew who did it. At this point, my aunt and her kids were absolutely shook. The medium had also mentioned seeing an older lady with white hair trying to connect with her. She said her name was Mary. That's my great-grandmother, who also passed around the same time as my aunt's ex-husband. I was super spooked, but also happy that my grandmother had tried to reach out to us. A few hours later, everyone had left my aunt's house except my mom, my aunt, and me. At this point it was dark, and her house is located in the middle of absolutely nowhere. No neighbors, and occasionally one or two cars pass by. As we sit at her kitchen table and decide on what kind of pizza to order, we hear the TV turn on in one of the kids' bedrooms. My aunt looks at me with the most blank face and says, her husband's name, "This isn't funny anymore." Then the lights above us in the kitchen start flickering. My mom stands up in total fear as I run over to her. The dishes fall out of the cabinets, and I hear my aunt yelling, "Stop! This isn't funny anymore!" We all huddle together in her kitchen, and then all of a sudden we hear a knock at the door. All of us were way too scared to answer, so my mom shouts, "Who is it?" No answer. My aunt goes over to the door and slowly opens it to find no one there. And as soon as she does, the living room TV turns on. My mom and I were so scared that we ended up leaving and never went back to her house. My aunt has since moved out of the house and has not returned. 3. My cousin Lloyd passed away a couple of years ago. He had a bad relationship with his daughter due to choosing his new wife, her stepmother, over her. His daughter never forgave him, and poor Lloyd spent his last years desperately trying to apologize for his horrendous mistakes and to make peace, and to try and meet his only granddaughter. Lloyd came to realize that family is everything. It's the only important thing in this life. Sadly, he never did see his daughter or granddaughter. Lloyd would spend his holidays with my family instead. We loved him and tried to give him that family connection he was so desperate for. Last year, I had an enormous fight with my mom and blocked her. About 2 months after that, things started going missing. It was just little things at first, once every week or two. One of my favorite makeup brushes, my good hand cream, my favorite lipstick, my hairbrush, perfume, and worst, my engagement ring. Just small, very personal items and only my stuff. And they were all items that have a designated place that I don't put down anywhere else. Over time it became more and more items and more frequently, until I'd put something down and as soon as I'd reach for it again, it had be gone. This was happening daily. It was driving me crazy. My house had become super active for it. The footsteps could be heard at all hours, day and night, doors opening and closing, TV turning itself on in the middle of the night, the guitars strumming themselves, whispering, lights turning on and off, etc. I kept asking for my things back, to no avail. Then 2 of my dog's paperwork folders went missing. These folders contain all of my dog's important paperwork, pedigree papers, vaccination certificates, champion titles, etc. I breed and show my dogs. And right now, I need both of these particular dog's folders, as one is about to be bred and the other needs her booster vaccination, and I need her vax cert to take to the vet with me. I have 10 dogs, and keep these folders all together in my filing cabinet. Only these 2 were missing. Finally it clicked. Bloody Lloyd was behind this. I don't know why I made the connection. Perhaps I could feel it was him. I don't know. At this stage, I hadn't spoken to my mom in 11 months, and I knew that's what Lloyd was upset about. So I unblocked her number in my phone and told Lloyd to stop it already, I'm doing it. A few days later, I get a text from my mom and I answer it. We start talking again. The activity stops. Not another thing goes missing. The house is back to its normal level of activity, not the freak show it had become. I start asking Lloyd for my stuff back. Nothing. A week goes by and it's my mom's birthday. I buy her a gift and go round to her place and have a visit. When I get home, I walk through the door and step on my missing engagement ring. "You little beauty. Thanks, Lloyd," I say. Later that night, I find my fave makeup brush on the floor of my bedroom. I vacuumed this morning. It definitely wasn't there then. Again, thanks, Lloyd. Yesterday, I went out of town to do some Christmas shopping, as well as buying some presents for other people. I bought my mom a present. I came home, and my 2 dogs' folders were on the dining room table. There's nothing else on that table, ever. So my dead cousin Lloyd is using theft and bribery to make me have a relationship with my mom. If you knew Lloyd, you know it was absolutely his style. Family is the most important thing. 4. For context, this was in October-November of 2019 in Chile, at the start of a social uprising. I'm mentioning it because a common way of demonstration here is a toma of a school. Basically, a bunch of students locked themselves in the school for a long time, meaning we had to stay the night. We stayed mostly by the front door, and what I'll call the back hallway, where we kept watch at night. These were separated by 2 open playgrounds where kids would roam around at day and such. The first thing that happened was in the 2nd or 3rd night. A few kids and me were keeping watch at the back hallway. It's also the oldest one, just a hallway of classrooms with most of them locked. One of the guys started to bang on the doors of the locked classrooms to see if something happened. In pure teenager fashion, we were hoping something would. And in 1 or 2 of them we heard banging from the inside. We were more excited than scared. After that, it was common to hear banging and things moving inside the classrooms. So now I'm just going to share the stuff that scared me the most. 2 girls came to the front door area to tell us that they were walking around and heard really loud noises in one of the classrooms of the back hallway, like chairs and desks moving. A big group of us went to check what happened. The first classroom that happened to be unlocked was a mess. Chairs and desks were scattered, some turned over. It looked out of a horror movie. We thought maybe someone wanted to prank us, but the girls said that there was nobody in that area of the school apart from them, and that classroom ended up being the most active, so I don't know. It became common practice between the kids that wanted to be haunted, me included, to check all the unlocked classrooms in the back hallway at the start and end of our shift of keeping watch, to see if something moved, letting the active one for last. One of the times when we were doing that, a guy decided that it was the perfect time to tie his shoelaces while we were in the active room. First we heard banging on the ceiling. We started to get scared and told him to hurry up. For some reason, he was having a hard time. And when we heard a small bang on the wall followed by a loud one, it sounded like a giant hand threw a punch. The window even vibrated and we booked it to the front door where the other people were. We didn't even turn the lights off. Then we tried to go back, but we noticed now the light was off. We just stared. And then loud sounds came from the classrooms. We didn't go back. The last story I'm sharing for now is my favorite. My then partner Ace and our friend Dalton and I went to check the back hallway with the intention of experiencing something. One of the guys, Jupiter, followed us trying to be sneaky and scare us, but we noticed. We walked through the hallway and heard stuff, but we obviously blamed it on Jupiter. We were cursing him and stuff when Ace said they saw someone sneak out of the active classroom. Assuming it was Jupiter, we just went and screamed at him from outside that he wasn't funny and things like that. Ace even started to kick the wall of the classroom from the outside. We heard kicking from the inside. Fed up with it, we just opened the door and turned on the lights, and, well, it was empty. We went in, we looked around, and just stood there dumbfounded. I was facing the inside while Ace and Dalton faced me in the door, when one of the desks moved by itself. I saw it. It looked like someone had pushed it with force. We booked it again. We screamed and cursed and almost tripped a few times. We were scared. It felt angry. And whatever lived there always felt almost friendly. Jupiter arrived at the front door a few minutes later and told us that he did follow us, but that he didn't even get to do anything, so yeah. 5. So fall semester of 1989. This story involves the main elevator that was not an original part of the theater section of the Fine Arts building. The theater part was built in the late 18 to early 1900s. The elevator and arts parts were built in the 1960s. The rumor that surrounded the elevator was that while it was being built, a construction worker managed to lure a young female student to the top of the building site and try to do unspeakable things to her. She managed to break away from him, but it had gotten dark by that point, and she fell down the incomplete shaft. It was the left side of a double elevator shaft. There were many tales of people seeing her ride this elevator up and down. When I finally met her at first, I didn't say anything. I was terribly shy. Yes, I knew she was a ghost, and yes, I was still shy around her. It was dusk. I had an evening class in the arts side of the building. Now, one quick interesting thing about this elevator shaft was that the ground floor only opened up to the outside behind the theater part. There was no second floor exactly on either side for it to let out, so the third floor was actually the next floor after the ground you could exit. During the day, it was fine to ride either elevator and exit on any floor of either the arts part or theater part. However, at night, you never ever even looked at the third floor exit of the theater side. Even if you didn't push the button for 3 on the theater side, it always stopped there and took what felt like hours to close back up. I had at this point seen the girl several times, but again, I never actually spoke to her before this. Anyway, I was running a little late for class and ended up on her elevator. She always stood by the door to the arts side, but that was about it. On this particular night, the elevator shivered and shakes its way up the shaft to the third floor. I hated taking this elevator because of the theater third floor always being dark, as it was in a miasma of darkness, not just no lights. But you could feel something waiting in the darkness for you to look at it. I to this day have no idea why it had to wait for you to focus on it, as I refused to. Anyway, the elevator stopped, then I heard the door open and I just stared at her. I could feel the darkness trying to reach out, trying to tempt me into turning around. It felt like a great big hand was reaching out to grab me. However, right before it felt like it was about to close around me, she screamed and ran at the door, which promptly closed and the elevator began moving again. I got off on my floor terrified. After class, I went down the stairs. I was about to walk away, but decided to go look in the elevator. She wasn't there now, of course, but I said, "Thank you." I never took either elevator to that class again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 216. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. And before I go on, I'd just like to give a shout out to the author of story number 3. That is Reddit user... Oh, how do I read that? Oh, Bubonic Plagiarism. Thank you very much, Bubonic Plagiarism, for letting us use your story. Alrighty, where are we right now when this goes up? It will be the 27th. Oop, it's December next week. I'll actually have to start thinking about just getting stuff in for Christmas Day. It might seem a bit early, but if stuff for dinner and things like that, that'll go in the freezer. I'll do that. I'll get some kind of dessert. That'll probably go in the freezer as well. Then I won't need to think about it. I will also get a couple of tubs of chocolate. I usually like those, the mixed ones, like Hero Celebrations, so you get little Mars bars, bounties, and that sort of thing in them, depending on which one you get. Probably go Celebrations. Unless there's an offer, I might get one of each. Last year they got opened early, and I expect this year will follow the same as well, because as far as I'm concerned, when we're in December, I can enjoy all the holiday snacks for that month, within, obviously, a little self-restraint and moderation. So I'll be getting that. I'll get some mince pies. That's, for those who've never had a mince, that's basically like a fruit kind of pie. That's very nice. So I'll get some of them, and I only ever eat them around about Christmas time. They're very nice, but it's the kind of thing you only ever eat. And for some reason, even though I do buy it year round, I always have to have shortbread at Christmas, family tradition, and Madeira cake. Again, not sure why, but it's a family tradition. They've always had it, so I generally will get one. So I'll be taking care of that. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.